The nun that was buried alive, the true haunting of Borley Rectory. They say demons don't discriminate. Even the most sacred souls can be claimed, and centuries ago, one was. But this isn't just a horror story. It's a historical nightmare, one that left behind something real, something that still lingers. The origin of the nun begins not in fiction, but in the ruins of a house once called Borley Rectory, a place whispered about as England's most haunted home. From the outside, it was grand, majestic even. But inside, it was a coffin of secrets. And its walls? They didn't just shelter families, they sealed one alive. In the year 1360, Borley was a devout village. A young priest served at the local parish. He fell in love, or perhaps into temptation, with a nun from a nearby convent. Their secret meetings became routine, until someone found out. The punishment was swift. The monk was hanged publicly. But the nun, she suffered a fate much darker. She was entombed within the rectory walls, alive, bricked in. No light, no escape, no prayers heard. She didn't die instantly. She screamed, she begged, until hunger and madness consumed her, until silence finally returned to the stone. Centuries later, a new rectory was built on the same cursed ground in 1862. The Bull family moved in, unaware of the sin buried beneath their feet. Then it began. Footsteps where no one walked, whispers in locked rooms, cold spots, vanishing shadows. Visitors would feel eyes on them, breath down their neck, and a presence that didn't belong to the living. Still, no one believed it, until a year later when she came back. Children loved the property's overgrown gardens and empty halls. One evening, their laughter stopped. A priest stepped out of his study to check on them. He found them all staring, frozen, in the east wing drawing room. In the corner stood a faint figure swaying gently by a wardrobe. It looked human, but wasn't. As it turned toward the children, they saw her, an ancient woman with sunken eyes, skin like parchment, and feet hovering above the ground. They screamed and fled. The priest, shaken, found only silence in the room. For 37 years that priest stayed. No further encounters, no disturbances. He believed the ghost had been laid to rest. But on the week of his retirement, the past returned. Standing in the courtyard was a woman in a nun's habit, face downcast, motionless. When he blinked, she was gone. And with that, her story began to bleed through the cracks again. Next came Reverend Guy Smith and his wife, Mabel. All was peaceful, until the day Mabel opened an old wardrobe and screamed. Inside was a human skull. Female, young, over a century old. And from that moment on, the hauntings escalated. Doors slammed, items flew, voices echoed through empty rooms. The air became thick with dread. They contacted a newspaper, which brought in a name still whispered in paranormal circles: Harry Price. After investigating, he offered just one piece of advice: you can't move the spirit, so you should move yourselves. 3 years later, the Smiths gave up and fled. Then came the Foysters. But a single mishap, perhaps a candle, maybe a lantern, ignited a blaze that swallowed the rectory in flame. By 1944, it was torn down, but even its ashes couldn't bury what had been unearthed. That's when Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived, the real-life investigators behind The Conjuring and Annabelle. They found a land thick with sorrow and demonic energy. Not just one ghost, but layers of pain, tragedy, and something much darker. Something called Valak, a name rooted in ancient demonology, a force said to command legions, a being that doesn't just haunt, it possesses. The Warrens performed rituals, cleansings. According to them, the nun's soul was finally set free. Since then, no one's dared to live there, and no major sightings have been confirmed. But Hollywood took notice. The story of the nun who was buried alive became the basis for one of the most terrifying figures in modern horror cinema. They gave her a face. They gave her a name. But the truth? It was always darker than fiction. Fade to black. Not all spirits move on. Some wait, some watch, some come back.